Okay, magic for beginners. How do you get started? This is something that you'll find almost infinite books about. There's probably infinite YouTubes about it. I've certainly made a lot of beginner content. The question is, how do you get started? If you look up at any of this, if you look any of this stuff up, you'll invariably see a recommendation to start a meditation practice. You'll probably, for 10, 20, 30 minutes a day, I recommend 30. You'll probably be given, the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, which is the most famous and basic ritual of magic. It's a great ritual. You'll probably get advice to buy a tarot deck, to start studying tarot cards, things like this. And probably a list of books to read. And probably some variation of the Golden Dawn system. All that stuff's great, okay? And you don't, we have tons of introductory classes, by the way, at magick.me. But I want to come at this from a different angle. And that's, how did I start? I started in a really interesting way that I wanted to pass on. And I actually recommend this as a way to start. Don't start by reading all of the crap that people have already written. Don't start by getting a workbook and going to the Golden Dawn. And there's great stuff. You can get Modern Magic by Don Craig or Libernal and Psychonaut, or you can take my courses, or there's lots of things you can get into. But honestly, don't start filling your head up with other people's ideas about magic, my own included. This is how I started. When I first became aware that there was this thing called that magic might be real, and when I first found out about this was in the mid-90s, so there was basically no information available. There were just little hints here and there that I picked up from books and things like that. And I did not think it was real, but I played an interesting game of chicken with the universe because I was a pretty smart-ass kid, and I still am. This idea occurred to me, which was, okay, there's probably no such thing as magic, right? That's silly. However, what if I could make something up called magic and then make it real somehow? Make magic real by my own creativity and will somehow. Wouldn't that then prove magic was real because I made it real by my own creative effort? You see what I mean? It's like, if I was to create magic and turn it into something real within my own life, well, that would then retroactively prove that magic always existed in the first place. Okay, how did I do this? It was really simple, and here's what I recommend. Before you get into any of this stuff, and maybe even if you've already been into this stuff for 5, 10, 20 years, and you've already read all the real way to do it, the official way, even something as free form as chaos magic, don't even get into that right away. Sit down and just write out a list and answer the following question. If magic was real, what would it be? What would it look like? What would you do to do magic? What effect would it have? How would that change your life? If magic was real, what would it be? So this is what I did, and I sat down and I just wrote I think I was writing it on just small Post-it notes or index cards, but I wrote a ton. And bear in mind, I was 15 when I did this, okay? So it was pretty goofy. I still have it. I should go back and look at it at some point. But there was stuff from Doors lyrics on there. There was stuff from John Constantine comics. There was stuff from just random books I had read. There were just weird ideas about things. And there was this kind of mishmash of kind of occult ideas and all this. By the way, if you hear rain and thunder, it's my magical warlock power in my castle, causing dark and foreboding weather to occur. So just gonna have to deal with it as if by magic. So, but I went through and I made this list, and there was enough in there that was actually really compelling. There were kind of I put in ideas from books that I had read about tribal cultures, books about shamanism. I just read the book The Serpent and the Rainbow about Voodoo and Haiti, all this stuff. And I tried to pull out the core ideas. And in there was a lot of ideas about the use of symbols to change other people's states of consciousness, or my own state of consciousness. Turns out this is what magic actually is, right? But I tried to feel and intuit my way into what it would be if it were real. So I came up with this list, and then I tried to actually do some of this stuff that I'd come up with. And I don't remember all the details, because this was, this was 25 years ago now or more. And but I found that I could actually get some of it to work. And again, I don't remember exactly what it was. It was kind of like this liminal, teenage territory, somewhere in between, goth lyrics and whatever, but I was actually able to get some of this to actually work. And looking back on it, actually, at this point, it was some of the stuff that I did then. And then the next thing is I started to write my own rituals. And I would come up with crazy things to try to get them to work with rituals. And I found that stuff actually worked a lot better than when I started doing it the real way. It was a lot more exciting, it was a lot more immediate, and it was a lot more potent and personally fulfilling because it came from me. After that, I started to try and do it like the correct way, and I got into the Golden Dawn and pentagram rituals and tarot and I Ching and chaos magic and all that. And I spent a long time, I mean, more than a decade, like trying to learn every single minutia, going to other cultures, studying yoga, Buddhism, NLP, like every single tradition, to try and get it right. And I did that, and I tried to be comprehensive, academically comprehensive, and pull out the best parts of that. And all of this ended up in Magick.me, my school for magic, and get the best techniques for getting into altered states of consciousness, for changing consciousness, all of this stuff. But none of it was quite as satisfying as that initial discovery moment, that when I just decided to wing it. I'm not saying do that forever, but I'm saying do it before you try to get into the quote unquote science, right? The quote unquote official way to do it. Because at the end of the day, all that stuff somebody else made up too, okay? Even if it's thousands of years old. It's not necessarily any more valid than something that you come up with, or maybe something that you dream about. By the way, best way to get started, start writing down your dreams and ask yourself, what is magic? And you'll get some interesting answers in your own dreams. There's this interesting phrase that some of you may know. I saw it recently on Reddit, UPG, unverified personal gnosis, which is a kind of a term that people on Reddit use for people who just say something is true because, like I just said, they had a dream about it, or an angel told me, or, it's unverified personal gnosis. It's just like, it just came to them. Well, like I get that, right? And it's good to be what's the word? It's good to be a little bit cautious with other people's claims and not get dragged into their psychocosm. But, at the end of the day, like, what is not unverified personal gnosis? Nothing in the occult, let me assure you, is not unverified personal gnosis. The closest we have to something real is the techniques of yoga and mathematics, okay? If you really want to study something that is very likely outside of unverified personal gnosis, you've got gnosis, you've got yoga, at least the techniques, if not the states that you get to, and you've got mathematics, and that's about it. Ultimately, nothing is not unverified personal gnosis. Read the Tractatus by Wittgenstein, read Bishop Berkeley, read David Hume, read any number of philosophers, even neurologists, who will remind you that all that we have in this world is the unverified data of our five senses. Or maybe we have more senses, but ultimately it's all that it is our brain trying to make sense out of chaos. Human beings are pattern assembling creatures. Our brains assemble patterns that previous experience has suggested to us will help keep us alive, but they do not tell us truth. And our senses and our brain are probably not capable of telling us truth. It's all just sensory data. And again, if you really want truth, don't look at religion, don't look at philosophy. Mathematics is probably the closest you're going to get. So it's all unverified personal gnosis. So I get this idea, but maybe we should go for a little bit of unverified personal gnosis from time to time. Go crazy, go wild. You can always go back and do it the right way later, okay? I guarantee you it's more boring, it's more stuffy. It may be more precise in some ways, and I think you should do it that way too. When I was first learning, we learned, chaos magic was very much the flavor of the day, and I still consider myself a chaos magician. But one of the things the chaos magicians would always say, or people like Robert Anton Wilson, was they would quote Count Alfred Korzybski and say, who created general semantics, and say, the map is not the territory, okay? Telling people that, you can't engage with symbolic representations of the world and think that it is reality. Well, I get that. right? But also, maps are useful to have sometimes. Sometimes you can't get to certain states, you can't get to certain realities without having a map. You can't get to certain destinations just on your own wandering. You need to have a map. And so the map in this case is the traditional map of ceremonial magic and Kabbalah and tarot and spiritual traditions and all that stuff too. So that stuff's really important too. But if you're just getting started, use your intuition, use your creativity, see what you can imagine and see if you can make it real. Because at the end of the day, all that magic is will and imagination. All right, I will see you in class at magick.me, magick.me.